So now, I want to introduce the next person. When I think of this person, the word came up to my mind is sincerity. Because we have monthly educators meeting in Seoul every Friday night. And he lives in Daejeon. And he always makes that happen. It's like 2 hours away from the Seoul, it's Daejeon. But he always been sincere on that. I'm sure he does for the student he has. So you want to find out more about the sincerity story of Ken Morrison, ADE class of 2013. Let's welcome him.
Apple, distinguished educators. It feels good, right? Welcome, congratulations. I'm honored to be here and I love the fact that I get to talk to you today. Have you ever thought about giving up? Maybe some of you are like me, and even at your current position, you thought about leaving because you thought it couldn't be done. And today I'm going to tell you a few things about some students that have really changed the way that I look at teaching. I thought about giving up, but my students didn't. I grew up in a tiny town called Howells, Nebraska. And when you live in a tiny town, sometimes people don't expect great things from you, especially in technology. But my favorite teacher, Nancy Twill, she did not believe that. She controlled the only internet connection in my town. I know. She invested a lot of time in me, and she always instilled in me, make the most of what you have. She wished that we had more technology, but we didn't. And she showed me how to make the most of what we had. Next. So she also taught me how to be curious and that learning can be fun. And that curiosity led me to Daejeon, South Korea. Now our students, many of them will tell you that this was not their first choice for a university. They're pretty good at English, but they really took a risk of going to this English environment and to learn content in a second language. They are like me. Many of them are from small universities. And I teach them that this is a great opportunity to make the most of your second chance. But they are taking risks. In Korea, your first job after the university really sets a trajectory for the rest of your life. And so they are taking a big risk of going into somewhere where there's professors from all over the world, new teaching styles, and they get confused often, but they do their best. They're making many adjustments. On top of the college-age adjustments, like I said, they have new learning styles and professors and international students from all over the world. Rural Korea has wonderful stories to tell. And I tell my students, if you don't tell them, perhaps nobody will. Somebody needs to tell these stories. And my students try. They create content to do primarily two things: to raise the morale on campus and to attract more international students. And it's working for them. The first thing I want to show you is Pages of Insight. This very small class of 6 students were talking to me about how the freshmen were having big adjustment issues. And I told them, why don't we make a digital publication, a study guide for how to make adjustments at our new university. They said, we can't do that. We're not the experts. And I said, you don't have to be. Each of you know one thing that would be very helpful for freshmen. And all of you know at least 5 people who can also share some wisdom for our young people trying to make these adjustments. And so they went about, did that. They took some photos. They got some great advice from people that they respect. And this is what we came up with. It's simply called LGC Secrets. And it's advice from people who they respect on campus. This did not take a lot of time, and most of it was done offline. They got advice from many people who they respected. Students who were excelling in class, international students, successful alumni, and just good people who they liked. We also reached out to students currently studying abroad and said, what would you like to learn, what do you wish you would have done before you studied abroad to do well and make adjustments later? And it worked really, really well. And it's a great teaching moment when Jody Jun said, I put it on the iPad and on the big screen, and he said, we made that? And then a moment later he says, we made that. We did this. Us 6 people in this room made a publication that's going to be helpful to young people. And what's really wonderful is they learned that it wasn't as hard as it needed to, as they thought it would be originally. It didn't take great technology. Technology definitely helped them with it, but it looked great, and it was something that would be engaging to young students. Now I know that there's nothing overly special about how that looks. It's a beautiful, beautiful template. Apple helped us make that beautiful. And it's still on our webpage, front page, maybe 2 years after we created it, 2.5 years after we created it. But what I love about it is it encouraged them to go out and make face-to-face connections, to make real change. The next story is Bow, Shake, Hug. As I told you, our students were making many adjustments. They don't always know how to interact with international students and professors. This is Min Kim. Min is one of the lucky ones. He was in a financial situation where he could study abroad, and he's also a proud Korean, and it made him feel bad when he saw younger students going through so much turmoil. And he said, I can help with that. I can help with that. And so he did. But his idea was not going to happen because our main editing bay was being used by someone else's project. So he decided, I can still make that happen. So he simply used his iPhone, and the same tactics, the same strategies that we had been using for our real productions, and he went out and he talked to some of the professors and asked them, how would you like to be addressed? And he also...
a junior in Linfield College. As you guys all know, the relationships with professors are an important part of success in college. They help us learn, they help us get jobs. Therefore, their impression of us is very important. However, in my years at LGC, I have seen many awkward and inappropriate moments when reading them. So, I chose to make videos for you guys to show you guys some examples and give you guys some suggestions.
Oh, hey, Huey, how are you?
Oh, hi, old of you.
Good.
Oh, hey, Props! What's up? What's up? Oh, look, I'll leave it for you.
Oh, hello. Good afternoon, Professor Scott.
Oh, hello, man. Nice to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's a nice day, isn't it?
Hello, Professor.
Hello, man.
Lovely day, isn't it?
It is. How are you? Great.
I hope so. Thank you.
A perfect example. A perfect example of a student feeling empowered that he can make a difference. And what I really respect and what I started to say before the video is he also went out and he found where's that conflict with the students. What makes them feel most uncomfortable? And he designed his whole production around those ideas. How do I make our students more comfortable and create good relationships between students and professors? Now, Professor Philip is always extremely encouraging because he knows we have a very limited budget. And that is part of the reason why I was considering leaving early in my career at this current position, because I didn't know if we could do what I had dreamed of doing with our very small budget. And he was so impressed because they had many meetings before they actually had the shoot, and they did many confirmations to make sure the days set and everything was a good situation. And Professor Phillips said that he was so surprised when Min pulled out this camera. And he said, I can't believe we're doing all this work for an iPhone production. And what makes me proud when Philip said that is that the students were willing to do all the steps necessary to make a great production no matter what they had in their hands. And they did a good job. Now I said that most of our productions are to improve morale on campus and to get international students interested in coming to our university. But after a couple semesters of that, some of our leaders said, this is nice, but I'm also interested in helping people outside of our community. And I said, wow, that's wonderful thinking. Let's do that. So we talked about it for a while, and we decided that they were going to help a very kind coffee shop owner in the neighborhood who was always very kind to our Hanam LGC students. And they wanted to use their skills to return the favor for all the good interactions and small discounts that this coffee shop owner gave them. I used to make television commercials. These students went through every single stage of a successful commercial production with this student. Very authentic engagement. And this is a commercial.
Classes, homework, part-time jobs, and more. Sometimes you deserve a break with your friends or by yourself. Cafe Cave was created as a way to help students get away. With great music and a relaxing atmosphere, you can find a shelter from your stress, connect with friends over fresh coffee, and also, on some nights, you can enjoy free concert with quality independent music. Cafe Cave, a great way to get away, not too far away.
We chose the target audience. We made two versions, one Korean version, one English version. We changed the script as needed, and the calls to action were somewhat different. But these students were willing to adapt, and they wanted to try new things. And I really love the fact that they wanted to help their community. And I love the line that they came up with all by themselves. Shelter from your stress. And I've never told my students that. But when I heard that, I remember thinking, these students, these wonderful students, have been working so hard for me for so long. Anything that I can do to help them realize how fun learning can be and to make it a shelter from their stress is something that I want to do. They're still going to work hard. They're still going to learn. Which is the next question. Are they learning? My students are doing many things inside the classroom and outside the classroom. Number one, I've integrated Facebook Insights. They measure, monitor, and make adjustments depending on their interaction with their videos and content online. They do this every single week. They're writing scripts for different target audiences, different calls to action. They're wonderful at presentation skills, and they also work on peer review before we go to production. And lots of collaboration and marketing skills. These two students came over from the marketing department because they were very interested in what we were doing and they saw the value of it. So project management, everything we do takes so much coordination. So the students are working so hard. Authentic Audience, this student, during his summer and winter break, he made content for the two biggest banks in Korea, Hana Bank and KD. Pretty good for a student. And critical thinking. What do you leave in a video? What do you take out of a video? How do you show it? Who's your target audience? Etc. And so, and two last things from the words of the students who made it. Jody Jun basically talking about everything we do, basically like a bullseye to make our learning objectives fit. He says it's a bullseye to cheer up our students' #1 objective and to encourage them to use their school life in effective ways. That's after 3 years in our class. And Min Kim is currently in Concordia, California, at the university there, helping them make video productions for marketing for their college. And he basically says the things that he learned in our classrooms, he's taking with him for the rest of his life. He feels it's very effective. So what's the future for LGC in our department? To be honest, I really don't know. But the last 2 years have been wonderful, helping our students realize how much they can do with very, very little. And most of it starts with simply taking the steps needed, collaborating, and doing the most with whatever you have, which is very close to what my favorite teacher said. So my main advice for you is if you're ever thinking of giving up, leave your office for a little while. Go spend time with those students that you're serving. Spend time with those students who make you really appreciate the fact that you are in a very lucky position, that we do get to touch students' lives. And if you do that, you get a little bit more energy, a little bit more peace, and a lot more motivation. And that's what works for me. Every time when I start thinking of budget and I get nervous, I have to go spend time with students. Then I realize they don't give up, so I'm not going to give up. And together we find a way. So big thank you to my students. They do so much. They never gave up when I was thinking about it. And one more thing, you might be asking, are we a one-to-one school? Who thinks we're a one-to-one school? Yeah, not too many. We're not a one-to-one school. Well, kind of. One department, one Mac. 3 consumer, very consumer low-end cameras, 1 iMac, and we've been able to do wonderful things that have met our 2 objectives. Cheer up these students that didn't get into the universities that they wanted, but they're going to bloom where they're planted, and they make a difference on their campus. I'm very proud of that, and they are attracting international students. And for a couple of students to do that with 3 inexpensive cameras and 1 iMac makes me very proud. So thank you for your time today.